One of the basic rules I have with promises, particularly promises that represent outstanding work on behalf of the user, is that the code I'm looking at either has to return a promise or have a catch handler. Because I either want to see you return a promise to someone else who needs to process that promise, or you're going to have a catch handler and make sure you capture all errors. That will include if something goes wrong in the network request and the promise is rejected, or if there's an error somewhere in the then processing. Since this is a controller, it's not going to return a promise. It's at the top of the call chain. I want to see the catch here. So now the only question is, what sort of function do I write inside the catch handler that will consistently process errors? Instead of every developer writing their own catch handler, what I'd like to do is centralize that logic and have a consistent catch handler. So I could put that logic inside of a dedicated service, or what I'm going to do in this case, since we already have an alerting service, I'm going to add that logic here because ultimately, if anything goes wrong with that promise, I want to display some sort of message to the user, and I probably don't want to display an HTTP status code. What I want to display is some sort of description that describes what that promise was trying to achieve. So the idea here is that when you write your catch statement, you will go to the alerting service and ask it to give you an error handling function by calling error handler and pass in a description of what you're trying to achieve. Perhaps you're trying to retrieve a record or save some data. In this case, I'll just say, failed to load data, a somewhat generic error message, but I'm just trying to simulate a scenario here. Hopefully you'll be able to provide a more descriptive error message in a real application. You could say failed to load account with the number, or failed to load employee. But you can see what my error handler has to do is it has to return a function that will be passed into catch. And then when anything goes wrong with this promise, I'll be able to display failed to load data as an alert. Let's finish building out this function, and also, before I forget, expose this function as a public member. So error handler will point to error handler. And let's do something very simple. I'm just going to return a function. And this function can simply forward this description to the add danger method that is already inside of the service. So let me save everything. And we have our controller calling a bad endpoint. So when I refresh, we'll get a 404 response, but we'll put failed to load data on the screen. And now I have a method that I can use for my alerting service that will provide consistent error handling throughout the application.